I had a weekend. So as many of you already know, I went to the Arnold this past weekend to kind of tag along with one of Brian Shaw's coaches and just kind of get the entire Arnold experience. It was my very first Arnold that I've ever been to, and I can honestly say it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was a weekend. So one of my really good friends, Andy, is actually training partners with Brian Shaw. They used to live in Colorado together. Since then, Andy has moved to Maryland, and now Andy is one of my training partners, and we are terrific friends. But whenever Brian is doing a really big show, whether it be World's Strongest Man or the Arnold or whatever, Andy always goes out to help him, to coach him, to be his handler, to do anything that Brian really needs. He helps a lot. He's also one of the most positive people you'll ever meet. And then I am also friends with Brian Shaw's wife, Carrie. So they just had a baby this past year, and she invited me out, Andy invited me out, so I figured I'd just go. I can't really pass up that kind of opportunity, and I am so happy that I didn't. So we got in Thursday around noon, and Carrie met us downstairs with her new son, Braxton, her and Brian's son, Braxton, who is an awesome kid. I think he's like 8 months old. But if you guys see any of the footage, trust me, you are going to see Braxton, their baby, because Brian had him up on stage, I think 2 out of the 3 nights. Both nights? Both? I don't know, it was a lot of nights. So anyway, we get there and Carrie takes us up to the room and Brian Shaw answers the door. Now I've met Brian before in the past at Maryland's Strongest Man in 2014. So anyway, we had met before and he was a super cool guy then. But here I am showing up at his hotel room and he invited me in and just made me part of their team for the entire weekend. I cannot thank you enough, Andy, for this opportunity. I cannot thank you enough, Carrie, for just being so awesome and inviting me. And Brian, I cannot thank you enough for just being so cool and let me share that experience with you guys. Anyway, I had like the ultimate Arnold experience because I was allowed to do things that people will never get to do. I was backstage for some of the events. I was in the press section for some of the events. I got to go to the athletes meeting where the 10 strongest men in the world were hanging out, joking, talking, laughing, seeing how they warmed up, seeing how they prepared. I thought that I had prepared for something in my life. I was wrong. After seeing what Brian does and the sacrifice he makes and how everything is calculated to become the world's strongest man, I was absolutely blown away. If I could say anything that I pulled away from this weekend is how much of a professional he is and how seriously he takes every single bit of his training. I thought that I took my training seriously. I don't. But it was massively inspiring to me to see how that upper echelon of dudes get stuff done and what helps get them to the level that they're at. Also, because one of Brian's sponsors is Rogue, we got a private tour of the brand new Rogue World headquarters, which is absolutely ridiculous and super cool. We were there for probably like an hour to an hour 15, just walking around, seeing everything, seeing how stuff was made, seeing all the machines, all the bars. It was absolutely insane. It was completely amazing and I loved every single second of it. And then after that was the athletes meeting where everyone was super cool. But after the meeting, we all went out and ate dinner together. I got to pick Brian's brain some and just catch up with Carrie and just hang out with Andy. It was such an amazing time. Then the next day was the first day of the contest for all the pro strongmen. So they had the yoke carry at 1,560 pounds. Yeah. And then a frame carry at like 1,150 pounds or something like that. So in order to get to the 1,650 pound yoke, they had to do a 1,300 and change yoke for the 15 feet in a fast enough time. And if they got done, if they completed that 1,300, then they got the chance to try the 1,500. But what that meant was that was almost 3,000 pounds already moved in event 1, not counting warm-ups, not counting anything else. Event number 2 was the frame carry, like I talked, that was well over 1,000 pounds. So then you're adding another 1,000 pounds. That was the end of day 1. It was absolutely insane. But I was so amazingly impressed with the competitors and just the way that they conducted themselves and being able to see them backstage and seeing how they interacted and how they warmed up. It was such an amazing experience. And then I got to watch the actual event from the front seat of the press section So I was right up on the stage with all the photographers and stuff like that. So some pretty cool footage to show you guys. Then the next day was day 2, where they had to do the deadlift, where every single guy who was being competitive was in the 900 to 1,000 pound range. There was a new world record set on the elephant bar deadlift by Jerry Pritchett, and it looked pretty easy. And then they had the rogue sandbag throwing over the bar for height. It was 15 foot. So they started out at 50 pounds and started working their way up. They hit like 50, 55, 60, 70, all the way up to 100 pounds. For anyone who has ever picked up a 100-pound kettlebell, that is not an easy thing to swing, much less throw 15 feet above your head. The speed, athleticism, and explosiveness of these guys is on a whole different level. It is really, really amazing to watch and such a cool event to check out. Then there was a couple hour intermission, and afterwards they had to show up and finish off the contest with the log press at night at a separate venue. So for that venue, I was in the backstage with all of the pro bodybuilders, and it was pretty cool, like seeing all those guys, seeing the dedication that they put in, and it was interesting to see how the pro bodybuilders interacted with the pro strongman, and everyone was pretty cool. It was a really good time. I got to touch the Austrian oak logs that they're cleaning and stuff. Really, really awesome. But then afterwards, we went out for a celebration dinner for Brian. Mark Bell actually contacted Brian or Carrie, or one of them, and said, hey, I want to take you and your group out for dinner as a celebration. So we met up with Mark Bell and his wife, Andy, who is a super awesome lady. And then it was myself, Andy, Carrie, Braxton, and Brian Shaw. And we went out to this super fancy restaurant. Now, we did not know that we were going out to a super fancy restaurant, so we were actually dragging Brian's gear bag with us that had the Arnold trophy that he just won in it, which weighs like 40, 50 pounds. And we're dragging that through the street with all his gear. We get to the super fancy restaurant, and we are all in like shorts and hoodies and t-shirts and hats and just sweaty and gross. We check the bag at the door, and then we sit there and we have one of the most amazing meals I've ever had in my entire life. Then Braxton needed to go to sleep, so Carrie and Andy actually walked back to the hotel while myself, Brian, Andy, and Mark all sat there and had a conversation for probably, I'd say, a half an hour to an hour, and it was one of the most genuine conversations that I've ever had with a group of guys in years. Just guys sitting around talking about some really awesome, amazing stuff. And I can honestly say that Brian is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Andy is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And Mark is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and super genuine, and just were absolutely amazing. And I thank you guys so much for that opportunity to just sit and share a little bit of life with you guys. Man, I look back on that so fondly. And then I woke up the next day and I was coaching 2 of my athletes from my gym in the adaptive strongman category. Now, if you don't know what adaptive strongman is, that means that they have a disability of some sort, whether they lost their legs in the war, like one of our guys lost his legs in the war, another one of our guys lost his leg in a car accident. And they get to compete in strongman events in the adaptive category. So these 2 guys have been training really hard at my gym for this. So when we went there, I got to actually get a backstage pass to be in the actual arena, coaching them and being beside them and getting video of their performances and stuff. And man, that was one of the most amazing, inspirational experiences of my life. Those people were just doing amazing, amazing things. Our guys ended up finishing in 2nd place and 3rd place, and I was elated. Absolutely amazing. But seriously, every single person there was an inspiration to just see how they overcome, how they persevere, how they don't make excuses, how they don't feel sorry for themselves, and they just get work done. There was one guy there who had an arm that really didn't work too well for him. So he was basically doing all the events with just his one good arm, but his legs were fine and everything like that. So it was the Atlas Stone event, and he had to pick it up off the ground and load it onto an oil drum, a 55-gallon drum. Now, for any of you who have ever tried to pick up a stone, you know that you need both hands, right? It is extremely hard not to. Zabi gets away with it with his partial arm, and he can get a good squeeze and put it up and over. And there were actually a couple guys in the adaptive category who were doing that exact same thing because they had similar situations. But this dude had an arm that didn't really work, so he had one arm to work with, and he was doing the standing category. He was not in a chair. There's two separate categories in adaptive strongman. There's a seated category and a standing category. So in order to get the stone up to the drum, he had to kneel down on the ground and then roll the stone into his lap with one arm. Once he was there, he had to do this awesome squat thing where he stood up holding on the stone with one arm and then use his hip to bump it up and put it on top of the platform. I was amazed. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. So after my guys got their awards, I congratulated them, and then we headed back to the record breaker event that was going on the main stage at the Arnold, where I got to see a bunch of people do circus dumbbell attempts for a world record. I got to see people lifting the Denny stones, including like Mark Felix, which is really, really cool to see. And then of course was Brian doing the 560-pound Atlas stone world record. Really, really cool experience. The entire event was super well run and it was absolutely amazing. I can honestly say I met so many of you and I was absolutely humbled and overwhelmed because so many of you came up and said, hey man, I watch your videos, they're cool, I like you, blah, blah, whatever. And we talked, and I hope you guys enjoyed meeting me because I loved meeting you guys. I was ecstatic that you guys recognized me and came up and said hi. Really cool, thank you guys. And then we finished up the day doing some press stuff with Brian where he had to be at some booths and just hooking up with some people that we haven't seen throughout the time because it was such a crazy, insane, from the moment that we got there on Thursday until we left last night, it was solid. It was just every single moment was taken up with something. It was absolutely amazing. And seeing how Brian prepped for these events was absolutely, it was mind-boggling. It makes me want to step up my game so much higher, so I thank you so much for setting that example, Brian. Then myself, Andy, the Shaws, Brian's parents, we all went out and got a meal together, and we sat and we talked for quite a few hours, and then Andy and I had to get in the car and drive 6 hours to get home. Then I had to get in my car and drive another hour to get home. So I got home probably about like 3:30 in the morning yesterday. I got pulled over on the way home, but the cop was super cool. I did not get a ticket. That was awesome. And then today I came to the gym and was super inspired just because of everything I experienced this weekend and the level of professionalism that I saw. It makes me want to become so much better. Guys, my first Arnold was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I know most people who go to the Arnold do not have that same experience. But for me, being able to be behind scenes and making a friend with literally the world's strongest man and hanging out with one of my friends that I hadn't seen in forever and getting to see her kid and play with her kid, that was awesome. And then, of course, being with Andy, who is just such a top-notch individual. It was seriously one of the best weekends of my life. I was absolutely amazed, overwhelmed, humbled. I thank you guys so much. I thank you for coming up and saying hi. I cannot say enough good things. I am just overflowing with positive thoughts about this entire weekend. So I just wanted to get those out and share them here before it kind of normal life starts getting in the way again. But I thank you guys so much for watching. Until I see you later in the week, go out, do something amazing with your lives, keep working hard. Be nice to each other. Be nice. Be nice to each other. Yeah, be nice to each other. And I will see you then. Thanks, guys.